everybody. Sorry about that. Good job, Brian. Good catch. Thank you. Welcome in, everybody. You join us for round number 6 at Paul Ricard for what will be a pretty good showdown between the GT3s and the GT4s. A tight championship up until this point, and just 2 rounds remain before we crown our winner in both of those series. And that's how it goes. We'll have a 10-minute qualifying for each division, the GT4s and the GT3s. And then after that, a 50-minute race with a mandatory pit stop to seal it all. Here for round number 7 at Paul Ricard. And we will go to the track here at Paul Ricard, on board with a race winner from last week, Ilpo Ruotsalainen, looking to carry his mega momentum that he has had all season long up until this point. And down that long Mistral straight, the GT4s are going to find a bit of downtime to perhaps read a book, take a drink. So with the GT4s, they have the first 10 minutes of the 20-minute qualifying session. The 204 Camaro of Ilpo Ruotsalainen, the first of those out on track, looking to get on the board early and set the pace. Early hours of the day, 6 in the morning. Pretty warm out on track though, 18 degrees. Should see the GT4s hopefully get their tires into a good operating window early on and be able to push from there. The Aston Martin of Alex Freeman going through that final sector to get set up for his first push lap. Hello, Doc Milwy. Hello, Viper. And the Beach GT redeemed. A good, all-important hydrate. Delicious tea this evening, as per usual, as there is the Beach Man himself going out of the pit lane in the number 18 AMG. And Neil already off the top with a fun fact redeem. Well, how about this one? In real life, the fastest lap set around this layout in a GT3 car is a 1:53.750 set in an Aston Martin V8. So we'll see just how close the GT3 grid can get to that. The GT4's a little bit slower in that straight line speed department. Just can't carry all of that momentum down this 1.8 kilometer straight. And it takes a bit of time for them to roll on through. As Ilpo Ruotsalainen through the final corner. Let's see if he's on a valid lap here as he crosses the line here. A 2:03.915 is the time to chase from the drivers behind. Brian DeSantiago in the 777, looking to get close to that time. He's about 3 seconds off of the pace, or perhaps just finding some time still with the tires getting warmed up and up to temperature and up to pressure. And at the home of the Alpine, Dr. Porkchop looking to do the brand proud and maybe, just maybe, sneak up onto that podium position. We'll see how high he can go as he goes up to the line. And an invalid lap, unfortunately, from the Alpine. So he will have to go around and try once more around the 3.6 mile layout at Paul Ricard we're using this evening. Not a lot of valid times on the board, just 4 drivers so far in the GT4s. Ilpo leading the way. Then you've got Joe Chericola next in the number 9 AMG. Brian DeSantiago 3rd and Rally Dutchy 4th of those who have set a valid time. Still waiting for Hezzy Thomas, Dr. Porkchop, Alex Freeman, and Justin Beachley in their pursuit of their fastest lap attempt to set the grid order for the race. Up ahead, Hezzy Thomas taking a lot of speed through Senia as he approaches the very tricky turn 9, carrying a lot of speed into the corner and having to draw back all the way through before trying to get on the power early for this entryway into turn 10. Which the KTM is handling very well indeed. See if Hezzy can get a valid lap on the board here as he goes through the penultimate corner, nearly drifting onto the blue abrasive surface. Does it well, avoids the track limit boards on the corner exit as the KTM comes up to the line, and he will have to go around once more to try and get a valid lap. Alex Freeman and Dr. Porkchop both looking to get laps on the board. The Alpine just ahead of the Aston Martin here as the Alpine goes into 4th place. Where will Alex Freeman go? He goes to the front row, about 6/10 behind Ilpo Ruotsalainen, who was able to improve his personal best on his previous lap. And as we tune in, he runs wide over those track limit boards. So we have to go through the final sector before he's able to cross the line and start another valid lap. Just behind him on the road, the 777 BMW of Brian DeSantiago. Looking to improve on his current pace, but he invalidates the lap as well. I need to stop tuning in with people. Person, everybody. That's the risk you run of having a commentator. Hey, you know what? We're missing Tyler this evening. Someone has to take over the job as Rally Dutchy drifting through the corner. What is happening to the Ginetta here? My goodness. That was wild stuff there. As the Alpine goes through the final corner, looking to get a big improvement on the board, but it needs to be quite a hefty one if Dr. Porkchop wants to get ahead of that BMW, which he is currently unable to do. But he does improve his time by about a second, but unfortunately, that will be the session done for the Doctor. As Hezzy Thomas sliding through and invalidating the lap. So that will be the session done for the Dogbox Racing KTM. as Ilpo goes through turn 9 to try and increase his gap over the rest of the field. Currently has a 3.5 lead over Alex Freeman and 1.2 seconds over Justin Beachley. What's going on, 787 Racing? Hope you are doing well. Yeah, Friday's LMU race should be pretty interesting. It looks like the grid is getting pretty big there as Ilpo improves his time by about 0.2 and gets even more clear of the field behind as the GT3s begin to roll their way out onto the track. That will be all of the GT4s complete. As Sarah Liu looking to remain in the top spot of the championship.
Holy smokes!
Welcome back to the podium. After a whole year of subscribing, thank you so much for the support. Hope you're having a good evening and enjoying the action here. A little bit of racing going on in the qualifying. The GT4s complete their session, and now the GT3s looking to establish their grid order going into round number 7. Neil Kerbel's going to be the lead car, setting the example for the cars behind to chase. The 395 Lexus currently sitting second in the championship, and we will certainly take a look at how those standings stack up a little bit later on. Going into turn 1 and 2, Lexus seems to be well under control there. As he carries on down the twisty straight before the braking zone of turn 3, another chicane at turn 3 and 4 before a very tight turn at number 5 down to first, trying to stay close as possible to those sausages. And now this is the important part. Carry as much speed through turn 6 and 7 to maximize the time down the straight. And this is the view from Kevin Yu's car in the 95 Ferrari just behind Neil Kerbel. And it is about a 30-second blast down the Mistral straight. 1.1 miles of flat out. The engine's revving to their highest before a touch of brakes and slinging the car into Senia, avoiding all the track limits on corner exit. And now the tricky turn 9, carrying as much speed as possible, turning it wide before getting back on the power and trying to get through into turn number 10. A lot of trail braking involved there to maximize, and once again avoiding the track limit markings on the corner exit. A flat out entry through 11 into the braking zone of turn 12, and once again it's just a corner that just the speed just closes and closes all the way into the apex. And going through the final corner, Neil Kerbel will set the time first, followed by Kevin Yu, a 154.675, and Kevin Yu improves the benchmark by about 0.4. Ferrari of Jim Reynolds looking to get on the board. Sarah Liu goes to the top of 54.197 from the number 310 Lexus, as Jim Reynolds goes on to the second row behind Neil Kerbel, ahead of Miguel Cicerone and Sir Kojay on the board, as is Vladimir Beluga, now in 7th. Still looking for a time from Devin Anthony as he goes through the final corner here in the 664 Porsche. And not a valid lap here from the Porsche. And Mach speed in the number 145. Nissan unable to get on the board, as is the number 42 of Professor Chronotis. A lifetime ban? From what? We gotta get Eric on the line for that. Kevin Yu still just behind. Neil Kerbel out on track, but ahead on the grid. And Neil Kerbel quickly goes to the top, and Kevin Yu improves into the 153s, about 12 thousandths ahead of the Lexus. Sarah Liu on an invalid lap. She will be unable to get on the board, and Sir Kojay with some pressure behind. As Sir Kojay able to improve his time, as does Jim Reynolds, but neither able to improve their position on the grid just yet. 3.5 minutes left in the session. Very important to get those laps in now. Devin Anthony on the board goes up to 8th. And now just looking for a time, still from Mach speed in the Nissan. Kevin Yu in a tight battle with Neil Kerbel and Sarah Liu for that spot on pole position. Will it be the Ferrari, or will it be the pair of Lexis being able to snag those positions? Currently, as it stands, Kevin Yu sits at the top. Neil Kerbel on an invalid lap. They will have 2 more attempts as they cross the line with just about 2.5 minutes left on the clock. Kevin Yu looking to improve his lap time and gain an advantage over Neil Kerbel and the rest of the grid. He's able to improve his time, but just by a little bit there. The gap now raised to 0.05 of a second. Cicerone across the line, gets his personal best on the board, needs another 0.5 second to get ahead of Professor Chronotis, who finds himself currently inside the top 5. Devin Anthony about a 10th behind Sir Kojay in the 420 BMW. This is the 664 Porsche going through the penultimate corner and looking to get that improvement to slot ahead of the BMW. About 0.6 behind of Miguel Cicerone. And will he be able to close down the gap? He gets pretty close. Gets within 0.03 of the 666 Aston Martin, but does get ahead of Sir Kojay and moves up to 7th place. Welcome in, Eric. Hope you're doing well. Got a tight battle at the top between Kevin Yu, Neil Kerbel, and Sarah Liu. Had that 1 lap time, but hasn't been able to put another valid one on the board on her last 3 attempts. As Kevin Yu returns to the pits, so he won't be able to improve his time. It's going to be down to Neil Kerbel in the 395 Lexus to find 0.05 of a second. PTSD, that's fair enough. But hey, at least we're ready with all the facts and figures. And we know our way around this 3.585 mile track with lots of improvements going around. Miguel Cicerone moves up into the top 5. Sarah Liu back in the pits. Jim Reynolds back in the pits. Cicerone able to cross the line before the checkered flag, so he's out on another flying lap attempt. Mach Speed gets on the board, moves up to 9th in the 145 Nissan. Sir Kojay unable to improve, so back to the pits from 8th for him in the BMW. And the 664 just a little bit ahead up the track. This will be the final attempt for the Porsche, and he's unable to get ahead of Professor Chronotis, but does get his personal best on the board there at the end. And Chronotis invalidating the lap. I don't know if dreaming is the right word, Dr. Porkchop. The 395 looking for an improvement here at the last attempt, looking to put a car between himself and Sarah Liu, the championship rivals in the 2 Lexis. Pretty close out on the grid, and can Neil Kerbel carry it through the final corner and hard on the gas up to the finish line? How big of an improvement can Neil Kerbel get? If he can get one, he's got a pretty big one. Gets a 53.5 on the board and improves past the record we mentioned earlier for his fun fact. So with the qualifying now complete, let's remind ourselves of how the GT4 grid lines up for the start of round number 7. In the top spot, we've got Ilpo Ruotsalainen in the 204. Creme de la Course Camaro was able to increase his gap over the rest of the field by a considerable margin hit there in the qualifying session. Alongside him on the front row, you've got Alex Freeman in the AF Sport number 14. Aston Martin looking to get a quick getaway, potentially gets that track position ahead of the Camaro. And what can Justin Beachley do, starting from 3rd in the Beach GT number 18 AMG? He currently sits 2nd in the championship, currently 3rd on the grid. Alongside him, the Mercedes of Joe Chericola, making it an all-Mercedes 2nd row. The number 9 of Billy Williams Racing, looking to get potentially a podium position here, starting out on the 2nd row. Then you got Brian DeSantiago in the 777 NPG Racing, starting from 5th in the GT4 grid. Alongside him is going to be Dr. Porkchop in the Alpine, the Chop Shop Racing number 71, starting from 6th. Then Rally Dutchy, next in 7th in the Ninetail Racing 621 Janetta. And alongside him will be Hezzy Thomas in the Dogbox Racing number 59 KTM. That's the GT4 grid. Here's the GT3 grid. Neil Kerbel starts on top in the Lexinomicon 395 and looking to get an early jump. But there is a lot of slipstream to be gained from 2nd place Kevin Yu in the 95 Ferrari. He's got a handful of podiums to his name this season and looking to potentially get his first win starting from the front row. Sarah Liu, the championship leader in the Denso Storm Chasers number 310 Lexus. Thank you for the follow. Hope you are enjoying the action so far as she looks to potentially secure the championship, with Jim Reynolds alongside her in the 313 BJ Racing Ferrari as he starts from 4th place. Behind them, Miguel Cicerone on the 3rd row in the 666 Cicerone Racing Aston Martin, with the Professor in the, oh, whoa, 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 number 42 Ferrari. Professor Chronotis looking to improve up into the top 5 early on as the formation lap gets started here. Devin Anthony lines up in 7th place in the Noobs R Us 664 Porsche. Sir Koj alongside him on the 4th row in the CBR BMW LN4 World Champion 420 BMW. And on the 5th row, you've got Mach Speed in the Speed 145 Nissan. Last but not least, Vladimir Beluga in the number 5 Beluga Racing Team. The lone Porsche starting from 10th. Now we get a chance real quick to glance at the GT4 standings. Ilpo Ruotsalainen has a good gap at the front of the championship over Justin Beachley. Then in 3rd, you've got Andres Mostachera with Diego not too far behind him. Brian DeSantiago in 5th, Dr. Porkchop in 6th. That is how those two line up on the grid this evening. Then you got Joe Chericola in 7th, Rally Dutchy in 8th, Pak Hae Kwan in 9th, and Hezi Thomas rounds out the top 10. And it's pretty close between a few of those positions, so a lot still up for grabs here in the final few races. And now for the GT3s. Sarah Liu leads the way, but it is pretty tight between her and Neil Kerbel in the 2 Lexis at the front of the grid. 16 points separating the 2 leaders. Professor Chronotis is next in 3rd, and he leads the Ferraris with 233 points. Jim Reynolds next in 4th, with Kevin Yu behind him in 5th. Devin Anthony 6th, Brian Zerline 7th, and Mach Speed is in 8th place with 2 rounds remaining. Once again, pretty tight field there. So we will exactly have to just wait and see how tonight pans out for the championship finale next week at Bathurst. Cheers for that hydrate, Akane, and I wish you could be here as well. That's a very exact number. Where did that number come from? As the grid goes through the final sector, they begin to line up side by side to get ready for the race start. Now with the grid bunching up nice and tight, you'll see how everybody here gets along. Yeah, kind of, that's how it goes around here. And with the grid rounding out the final corner, they get set for the green light to wave for the start of round number 7 here at Paul Ricard. And there goes the green lights. The 50-minute timer ticks away. Sarah Liu tucks in behind Neil Kerbel, trying to get ahead of the Ferrari early on, and going to the inside of the first corner. There's contact between the 2 Lexis. Neil Kerbel able to hang on, though, as they go through the first few corners unscathed. Jim Reynolds hangs on to 4th place, Professor Chronotis gets ahead of Miguel Cicerone and moves up into the top 5. Sarah Liu once again challenging into the braking zone, but Neil Kerbel able to stay out in front. Let's take a look at the GT4 grid. Ilpo Ruotsalainen leads the way. Justin Beachley having a look to the inside of Alex Freeman. Brian DeSantiago side by side with Joe Chericola, looking to get onto that Mistral straight. Ahead, up in 4th place, moving up from where he started. And he's got the inside, looking to carry the speed through the corner. Joe Chericola, though, he will have the slipstream. And at the front here, Sarah Liu chasing down Neil Kerbel, a 10th at a time, and into turn number 8. She is just going to have to tuck in and wait for another opportunity. Still very early on in the race. As Neil Kerbel remains out in front of Sarah Liu. Kevin Yu stays in 3rd, Jim Reynolds in 4th. Professor Chronotis moves up a position ahead of Miguel Cicerone. And looking back here, Brian DeSantiago going a little bit deep into turn 10, trying to carry all of the speed there and stay ahead of the Mercedes behind. Alex Freeman remains ahead of Justin Beachley as those two continue to fight into the final few corners. And Ilpa with a good lap at the start, able to increase his gap over Alex Freeman by 1.1 seconds. And the same can't be said for Neil Kerbel, who has Sarah Liu hot on his bumper, and Kevin Yu now challenging the 310 Lexus for 2nd place. And with all of this battling going on, that's going to allow Jim Reynolds to close in, maybe Professor Chronotis and Miguel Cicerone as well. They are not too far off of these battling cars. Here's the view from the back of the Lexonomicon with the grid chasing him down. And while those two try to chase down one another, Miguel Cicerone is going to have to carry the speed around the outside of Professor Chronotis to get the move done. He's going to look for the switchback, but that's a very difficult corner to get that done. And Professor Chronotis remains in that final top 5 position with the 666. Pushing hard behind, though, as is the Porsche of Devin Anthony. He is getting closer and closer to these two battling outside or for that top 5 position. Ezzy Thomas in the KTM sticking close to the back of Rally Dutchy and almost having a look down the inside there. Nearly getting the move done as a little bit up ahead. Brian DeSantiago still defending from Joe Chericola around turn 12 and into the final corner. He has the inside. Joe Chericola forced to go the long way around. And he continues his way through. As these two go side by side, the BMW just has the straight line speed to stay ahead of the AMG, but the number 9 is challenging into the first corner, and he's going to get the move done out of turn 2, and Dr. Porkchop is lurking. That little Alpine might just try to sneak through the 777 as well, and he's lining up a move down the inside of the braking zone at turn 3, but can't quite pull off the move just yet. And cheers, Thor. Welcome back to your 7-stream streak. Keep it going, my friend. A battle between the top 3 positions. Justin Beachley in 3rd, Alex Freeman in 2nd. AMG has the slipstream, tucking in right behind the Aston Martin. He's going to wait until the last second to pull out and get the move done. But Alex Freeman looking comfortably out ahead for the time being. And he can't quite tuck in, and there's been contact between the two Lexus. Neil Kerbel dropping to 6th, Sarah Liu to 7th. That gives Kevin Yu the race lead, and Jim Reynolds up to 2nd. Professor Chronotis rounds out the podium. Miguel Cicerone to 4th. Devin Anthony now in 5th, with Neil Kerbel about 1.5 seconds behind the Porsche in 6th place. I can only presume there was a contact between them, and that is why we saw them fall back down the grid. The 395 to 6, and Sarah Liu in the number 310 Lexus down to 7th place. So that gives Kevin Yu the race lead in the number 95 Ferrari, making it a Ferrari 1-2-3. With Jim Reynolds about 2.5 seconds behind, and then Professor Chronotis a further 2.5 seconds back for that final podium position. The number 9 AMG, after getting ahead of the 777 BMW, able to build a pretty decent gap over Brian DeSantiago here, who has not really fallen under pressure from that Alpine just yet. As he looks to use that BMW straight line speed advantage to close down the gap. Devin Anthony moves up into the top 5 after the 2 Lexis, falling back a few places there, back on the tail of Devin Anthony already. Neil Kerbel works his way through, but Sarah Liu unable to do so just yet. And now is where the straight line speed of the Lexus will shine, especially over the Porsche here. Sarah Liu closing in closer and closer, and now pulling out of the slipstream with a huge draft advantage, and through goes the 310 Lexus as the number 9 of Joe Chericola gets a drive-through already for track limits just 10 minutes into the race. A drive-through for Joe. He is in 4th in the GT4s. That will drop him back a considerable amount, as Neil Kerbel now challenging Miguel Cicerone for 4th place, just up ahead of Sarah Liu here. And Neil Kerbel with a brilliant move to the inside to take advantage of that. Sarah Liu now trying to work through the Aston Martin as well, as they're going to go side by side down the main straight. And the 666 Aston Martin will just have to tuck in there. So that releases Neil Kerbel to close down the 2.5 second gap to Professor Chronotis, and Sarah Liu looking to stay close as well. Is what Alex Freeman is seeing from the back of his car, compared to Justin Beachley trying to close in and get that 2nd place spot away from the AF Sport Aston Martin. as these two go down the main straight. Just continuing to battle. Alex Freeman not giving, or I should say not allowing that gap to close in, just putting in good laps. As Sarah Liu in hot pursuit of Neil Kerbel. Those two looking to get back into the podium positions. Professor Chronotis now just 2 seconds up from Neil Kerbel. And Sarah Liu not too far behind that green and purple Lexus up ahead of her. When will we see the drivers decide to go into the pits as well? Oh, a spin from Sarah Liu in the Lexus! Uncharacteristic spin there from Sarah, dropping her a position to Miguel Cicerone. That's Sir Kojay behind in the 420 BMW. So all of that hard work she's going to have to do all over again to try and close the gap to Neil Kerbel. And this battle for the GT4 podium continues between Justin Beachley, Sarah Liu back in the pits. What happened there to the 310 Lexus? Not sure if she returned to the pits or whether she drove in there, but nonetheless, the 310 Lexus back in the pit lane. And now Neil Kerbel all over the tail of Professor Chronotis. As they go through the final few corners. As the Lexus looking to change the grid of the Ferraris in front. The Professor getting a little bit stranded on corner exit. And Neil Kerbel closing that gap very effectively. Almost bump drafting the Ferrari up ahead. And into turn one. The Ferrari has the inside. Neil Kerbel the long way around. Now he has the inside. And nothing that Professor Chronotis can do to fight back there. Neil Kerbel sweeps through to get back into the podium positions. And now Devin Anthony looking to get through Sir Kojay, having a look down the inside, and now that turns into the outside, and once again will turn into the inside at turn number 5. And Mach Speed looking to get involved in the mix as well as the 664 Porsche goes through and will now give up the slipstream to the BMW and the Nissan behind. And Mach Speed goes through the BMW as they go side by side down towards the end of the Mistral Straight, and Sir Kojay will have to tuck back in as Mach Speed moves up to 7th. Oh, and he might have clipped a track limit board there. Don't want to pick up too many of those, or he will get a drive-through like we saw earlier on. And there was a mistake there from the 145. Sir Kojay goes through, and Mach Speed will have all that work to do over again. with Neil Kerbel back to third. He's got a 4.5-second gap to make up to Jim Reynolds. Justin Beachley, gap growing just a little bit here to Alex Freeman as they are approaching Hezzy Thomas there, one of the two drivers who have come into the pits to serve that mandatory pit stop. And there the 59 KTM graciously moving to the side to allow these battling two GT4s go through. Justin Beachley heavily over the curbs, trying to carry all of the speed through the apex in his effort to stay close to the Aston Martin of Alex Freeman out in front. While these two continue to battle, Ilpo Ruotsalainen in the Camaro has been able to grow the gap to about 7 seconds. This is the closest battle we currently have out on track between the Aston Martin of Alex Freeman and the AMG of Justin Beachley. Dr. Porkchop in the pits in the number 71 Alpine. Yeah, that's just sometimes how it goes, Akane. The grid kind of separates out depending on the track and depending on how many cars show up as well. Slightly smaller grid here this evening at Paul Ricard. I'm sure lots of people busy with school coming to an end for the holiday season coming up. Update, Neil Kerbel closing down the gap to Jim Reynolds. Now the gap down to about 4 seconds. It was around 5. Sorry to hear that, my friend. Hope you are doing well. As Alex Freeman continuing through the first sector, and there Vladimir Beluga looking to get the overspeed on the GT4s down the Mistral straight. Hezzy Thomas gets a drive through for track limits. In a slightly sketcy moment to get the overtake done for Vladimir Beluga, but nonetheless gets the position on one car, and now looking to slot ahead past Alex Freeman. And Neil Kerbel in the pits from third in the 395 Lexus. Kerbal coming out of the pits into plenty of clean air. So now he's got the fresh tires to run to the end of the race. 29 minutes to go. So many different cameras positioned down the Mistral straight just to see all of the action there. With Kevin Yu leading the way in the number 95 Ferrari after the two Lexis come into contact. Falling down the grid order, but looking to recover is Neil Kerbal. Sarah Liu still in the pit lane. As we have lost a couple of drivers so far here this evening. Joe Chericola unable to resume in the event. Oh, and the KTM of Hezzy Thomas as well. Get that drive-through earlier, but I didn't see that the KTM disconnected. As Mach Speed gets his car done and serviced, rolling out of the pits. Looking to get ahead of Vladimir Beluga, and there is the number 5 Porsche, and it's going to be a tight battle on pit exit here. There's the lead GT4 of Ilpo Ruotsalainen. Miguel Cicerone in the pits from 4th place. After 12 laps completed by the GT3s and GT4s for that matter, Kevin Yu just now approaching the leader of the GT4s here. Is this the time that we'll see Ilpo do his traditional stop of when the GT3 traffic begins to overlap? Justin Beachley coming into the pits a little bit early on from 3rd. Sir Kojay in the 420 BMW getting out of the pits. Will he be able to stay ahead of Mach Speed in the 145? It looks like he does. There is the Nissan just now appearing with Vladimir Beluga hot on their tail as well. Kevin Yu and Jim Reynolds in the pits right as the race director announces the halfway mark, as is Ilpo Ruotsalainen and Alex Freeman. So the top 2 of both categories in the pits. Professor Chronotis in his 42 Ferrari goes into the pit lane as well. And it is very active right now as we have hit the halfway mark of the race. Under 25 minutes to go now. Brian DeSantiago there in the 777 BMW making his stop as well. And there you see it, 6-7 cars in the pits. Ilpo gets done and serviced, rolls out ahead. There's Alex Freeman getting done. Kevin Yu, where will he come out relative to Neil Kerbel? Looking to get the undercut done here. He's got the fastest lap of the race. Did it on this lap just now, so he's got the pace to get close to the cars out in front. And in fact, he already has the pace to get ahead of Jim Reynolds. This will be second place after Devin Anthony completes his mandatory pit stop from the lead of the GT3s. So now just a 5-second gap separates Neil Kerbel here in the 395 Lexus from that white Ferrari there, just going through turn number 7. After the pit stop in the GT4s, Justin Beachley did get ahead of Alex Freeman, but it looks like, based on the times, that Justin Beachley did not take any tires during his pit stop. So will Alex Freeman have that advantage going for him for the remainder of the race, as Brian DeSantiago looks to close the gap to the cars out in front, but it is quite a big gap for him to make up. But still, anything is possible here. And he's got a pretty good gap behind a Dr. Porkchop, so this looks like a top 4 finish as it stands for Brian DeSantiago. Potts, how's it going, my friend? Haven't seen you on the grid in a while. Hope you're doing well. Mach Speed closing in on Sir Kojay as these two continue to battle after their pit stops. And where will Devin Anthony come out as well after his mandatory visit to the pit lane? Neil Kerbel closing that gap by about a second on the last lap to Kevin Yu, who did that outlap real quick. Popped in to see what's what. This is what's what, round number 7 at Paul Ricard. And yeah, excited to see you back. Happy holidays to you as well. And yeah, always excited to see familiar faces back out on these grids. With Devin Anthony, the last of the 15 drivers remaining out on track to pit, will trundle down the pit lane with that pit limiter engaged at 50 kilometers an hour, slowing his way into his pit box, turning the engine off and letting the crew get to work, changing the tires if he chooses so, and getting the necessary fuel in the car for the remaining 20 minutes of the race. Neil Kerbel closing that gap now. 3.2 seconds separates him from the lead Ferrari of Kevin Yu. Pop in anytime, Potts. And anybody else watching as well. Remind ourselves of how the GT3 standings look going into this event. Sarah Liu in the lead by 16 points over Neil Kerbel. Keep in mind there is a drop round still, so all of this may still yet change before the season finale next week. Then you got Professor Chronotis in 3rd, Jim Reynolds 4th, Kevin Yu in 5th. But leading the race here, trying to defend 1st place from Neil Kerbel. Then Devin Anthony in 6th, Brian Zerline 7th, and Mach Speed in 8th place. Lots of tight battles there all throughout the championship, so still lots to play for. Brian DeSantiago getting a drive-through, as does Rally Dutchy. True drivers in the GT4s picking up drive-throughs. That will certainly cost a position for Brian DeSantiago over the Alpine of Dr. Porkchop. Hope everybody's having a good Wednesday so far. Enjoying the action here at round number 7 around Paul Ricard before the season finale next week at Bathurst. Some tight championship battles. And let's take a look once more at how the GT4 standings stack up. Ilpo Ruotsalainen leading the way. He's got a comfortable gap over Justin Beachley. And then he has a decent gap over Andres Mostachero and Diego Mostachero then behind in 4th. Missing them on the grid this evening here at Paul Ricard. Then Brian DeSantiago rounds out the top 5. Dr. Porkchop behind him in 6th. Joe Chericola 7th. Rally Dutchy in 8th. Pak Hae Kwan in 9th, and Hezzy Thomas rounds out the top 10. Brian DeSantiago gets that drive-through cleared and comes out behind Dr. Porkchop. Now it has about a 10-second gap to try to close down on the Doctor for a spot in the top 4. Alex Freeman on the fresh tires, pushing hard, trying to close the gap to Justin Beachley. It was around 3 seconds after he exited the pits, now down within a second of his next competitor on the road, the number 18 AMG just there. And they've got the 420 BMW of Sir Kojay trying to work his way through this multi-class battle. And now the Aston hot on the tail of the AMG. He's looking to get the move done down the Mistral straight. He lines up a move down to the inside, and he's already ahead with that straight line speed advantage of the Aston Martin. Moves himself up into second place, and now with the fresh tires, he should be able to keep this gap and run away with it here. Justin Beachley not giving it up easy, though. He's going to try to stay close to the Aston Martin as best as he can. And at the front of the GT3 field, that is what the gap looks like to Neil Kerbel in second place. And we will certainly have a battle brewing here for the top spot in the GT3s. Neil Kerbel closing in on the number 95 Ferrari, just feathering the throttle through turn 8, looking to maximize the lap time. And as the pair of leaders in the GT3s work their way through the 71 Alpine of Dr. Porkchop, Neil Kerbel gets within a second of Kevin Yu now. And will look to use the straight line speed of his Lexus down that long 1.1 mile Mistral straight to close even further and potentially challenge into turn 8. And down the Mistral straight, 30 seconds go by, and Neil Kerbel closing in by a further 4/10 on the Ferrari of Kevin Yu for the race lead. 11 minutes to go. Just a handful of laps remaining for the race leader to be determined. That final sector, Kevin Yu seems to be comfortable ahead of the Lexus. It's just down that long straight. Neil Kerbel's going to have a good advantage going all the way through there as we ride on board with the Lexonomicon. These two, with their tremendous pace out in front, have built a nearly 20-second gap over Jim Reynolds, who has that final podium position in third. Then you got Professor Chronotis in fourth. Miguel Cicerone rounds out the top 5 in the GT3s. Then you got Devin Anthony in sixth, Sir Kojay in seventh, Mach Speed in eighth, and those two are still pretty close in that battle for seventh. Vladimir Beluga ninth, And in the GT4s, Ilpo Ruotsalainen leads the way by about 12 seconds over Alex Freeman after recently inheriting P2 over Justin Beachley, who is in third place. Then Dr. Porkchop in fourth, Brian DeSantiago in fifth, and Rally Dutchy rounds out the GT4s in sixth. Sketchy stuff there with Neil Kerbel having to shuffle the wheel left to right to keep that car under control in his battle for the race lead with Kevin Yu. This is as close as Neil has been through this first sector. So will he be able to stay closer even still to the wing of that Ferrari and use the slipstream to his full advantage? Ox Speed having a good opportunity here to get alongside the BMW, but not able to take the long way around turn 12. And through the final corner they go, the BMW able to power out of the corner ahead of the Nissan pretty comfortably here. But still that gap within a second, so that position still not yet decided. And at the tail end of the Mistral straight, Neil Kerbel gets very close to the bumper of the Ferrari, but not a heavy braking zone there for him to be able to challenge for the position. As Kevin Yu looks pretty comfortable and planted in that Ferrari up until this point, and looking to keep it that way in the closing 7 minutes of the race. As we go down the main straight, start lap 23 for the GT3s. Neil Kerbel looking to stay as close as he possibly can to that Ferrari in the first sector and use the slipstream, use the top speed of the Lexus all the way down that Mistral straight and potentially line him up into Senia at turn 8. And exiting onto that Mistral straight, Justin Beachley getting a drive-through in the closing minutes of the race. Is Dr. Porkchop close enough to benefit from that? We'll have to wait and see, but it doesn't look like that will cost Justin Beachley any position out on track. But he was staying close to Alex Freeman, challenging him for that second place position. And that will be a visit down the pit lane for the number 18, as he is in to do just that. As he continues down with the pit speed limiter on, the two race leaders work their way through that start-finish straight. And Justin Beachley escapes without losing a position, as Dr. Porkchop might come into battle here with Brian DeSantiago. The gap closing, it's within 3 seconds, now 2, in that battle for 4th and 5th in the GT4s. Can ride splitter cam with Neil Kerbel and the Lexus's effort to chase down the Ferrari in front and continue the streak of only Lexuses finishing in that top spot in the GT3s. Can Kevin Yu dethrone the Lexus and put his number 95 Ferrari in that top spot? 2 laps remain, 3 minutes on the clock before the checkered flag waves on round number 7. Here's Brian DeSantiago in his efforts to chase down Dr. Porkchop there ahead in the teal Alpine. As he has Sir Kojay and Mach Speed, both of them working their way through in their battle. Still not settled. Alex Freeman gets a drive-through as well in the number 14. So he will have to serve that. And him and Justin Beachley were pretty close to each other out on track. And so will that cost the position there potentially to Alex Freeman? Mach Speed is lining up the move into the second to last corner, gets a bump from Sir Kojay and onto the red, very abrasive surface, slowing the Nissan down and getting it pointed in the correct direction. He just has 2 laps remaining to try and get that position away from the BMW. These two seem pretty evenly matched. Can Sir Kojay hang on to 7th? Or will Mach Speed be able to get that move he's been looking for after the pit stops to get ahead of that BMW driver? There, you heard it there. The pit window closed, meaning there is 1 minute left. And with the GT3 leaders crossing the line now, there is just 1 lap remaining here in round number 7 at Paul Ricard. The Nissan closing in, getting closer and closer. He wants the inside, forces his way there. The BMW is going to try to keep him there all the way up until the apex. That way the BMW can carry as much speed through the corner, but the Nissan defends it well, and it's going to be a very tricky job going around the outside of turn 9 for the BMW. And Sir Kojay looking for the over-under in the BMW. He gets his car to the apex first, moves ahead for the time being, but into turn 10, Mach Speed has the inside in the Nissan. A little bit of a lockup there, it looked like. The rear went a little loose, and Sir Kojay fights back and gets the position back. Mach Speed's gonna fight it down the inside though, and now that is gonna allow him to try the over-under, Down the main straight they go. The BMW protects the inside line. They're still side by side, as they were for pretty much that entire final sector. And now the Nissan slots through ahead before the braking zone. Will we see a dive from the BMW? We will. Into turn one. Gets ahead into the apex, keeps it on track. And once again, the Nissan's going to look for the over-under here. Tucking to the inside for the braking zone of turn three. Nearly side-by-side contact. The Nissan being forced all the way to the inside, and he gets the apex first, slots in front. The BMW is going to have the slipstream down that start-finish straight. But real quick, Kevin Yu about to cross the start-finish line in first place, dethroning the Lexuses as the only car to take a race win. The 95 Ferrari takes the top spot and takes the checkered flag. Neil Kerbel across the line in second place in his efforts to chase down the lead Ferrari, fall about 1.8 seconds short, but still a good result after that recovery drive from Neil Kerbel. Alex Freeman across the line getting a 30-second penalty for not serving his drive-through, and Sir Kojay unable to use the slipstream to his advantage to stay close to that Nissan in their battle for 7th. So at the final efforts there, Mach Speed able to get the move, just needs to keep it strong here in this final section. And after that hard-fought battle there, Mach Speed's going to end up out in front. Jim Reynolds takes the final podium position as there's a dive at the end there from Sir Kojay to try to get that position. But Mach Speed will finish ahead in 7th, Sir Kojay in 8th. So Jim Reynolds rounds out the podium of the GT3s in his 313 Ferrari. Professor Chronotis in 4th, Miguel Cesarone 5th, Devin Anthony 6th. Then you got Mach Speed and Sir Kojay here across the line in 7th and 8th place. Ilpo Ruotsalainen still needs to finish out the final sector, as there is a tight battle here to the line between Dr. Porkchop and Brian DeSantiago for 4th and 5th, and it will go the way of the Alpine there, finishing ahead of Mr. DeSantiago. And Ilpo Ruotsalainen, the last car on track, the leader of the GT4s from start to finish in the Creme de la Course Camaro, extending his championship lead at the top. Well done to the drivers there this evening. Just one round remains at Bathurst in just 1 week's time. Who will finish out in front? It is very tight between Neil Kerbel and Sarah Liu, and we'll see exactly how the championship standings are affected at the beginning of the race next week. We'd like to invite our podium sitters for a quick chat, but if they are not available, no worries at all. Despite the small grid, that was pretty tight racing there. Good fight back from Neil Kerbel to get back into second place, with Kevin Yu taking that top spot away. And speaking of, Neil Kerbel ready for a chat. Welcome, Neil. How's it going? P2. Good finish at the end there.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. I'm muting my... I was looking at the replay to see what happened between me and Sarah.
Perfect. I was just about to ask about that.
It looked like side by side through the end of the Mistral Straight, and she might have went a little wide and bumped me off track. I clipped the wall pretty hard, so I was struggling with like 28 seconds of damage that entire race. So
dang, yeah, that's a good amount.
I can catch up, but Kevin Yu just defended. I couldn't, like, I got him down the straight, maybe like 3 or 4 tenths, but that Ferrari in the corners just carries more speed. So even though like I could pull on him in the straight, he just pulled away from me in the corners. And then last lap I lost focus and went off track. So It's a good race regardless. I'll take a P2. Yeah, it's a good race. Good showing by all the people on track.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And a good fight back from you. I think you were down in 6th at one point and able to get that podium position at kind of at the middle there through the pit stops, advancing from 2nd or from 3rd up to 2nd place. And yeah, after your commentary stint, you sure know your way around Paul Ricard here.
I'm used to it more in the McLaren. I've driven a lot of the McLaren around Paul Ricard, so this is my first sojourn at Paul Ricard in the Lexus, and it's definitely strong on the straights. I just need to be able to like trail brake a little better.
Yeah, that's fair. That's usually how it goes with that sort of thing. Yeah, just got to get familiar with how that car specifically handles, and yeah, just all that good stuff.
I am still learning.
Yeah, well, no better place than here.
Yep.
The GT3, the GT4 Multiclass on Wednesdays next week at Bathurst. You looking forward to that? Excited? Nervous? How are you feeling for the season finale coming up?
Oh, I know what Bathurst is going to bring, and the mountain can giveth, and it can certainly taketh away. And with weather conditions playing a factor, it'll be very interesting. So I look forward to. Actually, I like being in the car during wet races, so you will be envious of me as I crash into walls.
Yeah, we'll see exactly what happens there. Thanks for joining, Neil. Good to chat with you as always.
Yeah, you too, Kuja.
Yeah, move you back here to the green room and bring in a GT4 podium sitter, Alex Freeman. Welcome in, Alex. Congrats on that P2 finish. Despite getting that drive-through at the end, you still hold on to 2nd place.
Oh, did I? Because I thought it was a 30-second penalty, and I think Beachley was only 27 seconds behind me. So
maybe not.
He might have. Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe
ended up P2.
Yeah, I didn't take a look at the final standings because there was like a little bit of that glitch there with the car returning to the pits before the checkered flag. So it just kind of took a while for those final standings to pull up. But yeah, maybe we'll just have to wait and see the final results. But still a podium finish. And yeah, with Justin also getting that drive-through, it made it close between you two at the end there.
Oh, yeah. We just had to provide a little drama in there.
Perfect. Much appreciated. But yeah, let's talk about the pit stops. It doesn't look like Justin Beachley took tires, and you did. And you got that overspeed advantage on him, kind of got that move done pretty easy down the main straight. Did you feel like you had a good speed advantage down the straight as well compared to that Mercedes?
A little bit, yeah. I know when we were here last season, that was really kind of an eye-opening experience to run in the Aston with zero wing. And I was how well it handles even with zero wing. And like with that long straightaway, I knew that, as little wing as you can get by with, the better. So
yeah, it seemed like it really benefited there. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see exactly what the results are. But still, podium finish here. What are you looking forward to next week at Bathurst?
Honestly, well, with Bathurst, just surviving.
Yeah, that's kind of the aim there. Go right ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. Yeah, that's one of those tracks where you just kind of have to race the track and just see where you end up.
Yeah, pretty much. It's so unlike any other track where the walls are pretty much right there for 2/3 of the track, and any little bit of contact might career you into the other wall and then into the other wall again. And yeah, it just might be completely race ending, or you might come off completely unscathed and just kind of ride the wall a little bit and come out with 2/10 of damage. And it can be a little bit unpredictable in that sense as well. So yeah, super excited. And it looks like it might be a little bit unpredictable weather as well, which will certainly add a little bit of an excitement factor to that season finale.
Always.
Thanks for joining, Alex. Much appreciated. Good to talk to you as always. Move you on back
thank
here.
You guys for the broadcast.
Yeah, super fun to provide the action here for you guys. Thank you all for watching along. The Monday Rookies season has come to a close, so we just have the Friday Le Mans Ultimate 2 race championship before the end of the year, and the season finale next week in ACC. and perhaps some iRacing action as well tomorrow or next week. I haven't had a chance to check out the iRacing schedule, but that is certainly on the tabs there. Get yourself signed up for all of the championships on SimGrid. Discord is the place to keep up with all of the latest news and updates. Check the Tracklicious website for some cool hats, shirts, and stuff like that coming up for the holiday season. Get some gifts for your loved ones. And show your support to the Tracklicious community as well. And speaking of, show your support from one sim racing community to another. We're going to get a raid set up of El Taco Man doing some Le Mans Ultimate Racing. Enjoying the new update in the LMP2s and the LMP3s. So give them some love in their stream. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. I have been Kuja Terekov. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you may be watching us from, and we will catch you next time.